Well, my name is Chris Egan, and I'm with the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the School of Social Work. But I've been involved with CQL for probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 16 years. Came across the outcomes, made a lot of sense to me in terms of how it fits with person-centered approaches, but provides a structure. And that structure was what was so important. It means that we don't forget to ask the tough questions. We can recognize the priorities that people have in their lives, and find ways to really determine quality and how people define those, but also look at those things that may not be priorities right now, but that we need to tackle at some point. And it's been a number of years ago, I was actually involved in providing services for someone. And folks that have been involved in training with me are going to get to hear this again, because I like to use this example because it really stands out to me. And even to this day, I can still picture the whole circumstance of this particular evening. And it's about one of the most important outcomes, in my opinion, and that's respect. In fact, we get to respect a little bit later in the process of conversations with people, because I think you have to really get a sense of how life is going and how folks are treated in order to really determine if respect is present. And this isn't really a great example because I was involved in a leadership role in the agency serving this young man. And I happened to walk in one evening. He was living in a rural area away from town, on a kind of a rural highway, so even neighbors weren't that close. And he was the only one living in this particular home, but yet he's a social guy, a young guy, interested in being involved with people, interested in having a life, basically. But because of reputation issues, he was sort of out further away from people than he should have been. So I happened to walk in, and it was an evening where it was warm, and so there was a screen door on this small house. I could hear things weren't going so well. It was around dinner time. So I knocked, but nobody heard me, so I went ahead on in. And folks were back in the kitchen. This young man was in the kitchen, and he was involved in doing the dishes. And he was, I'm not very tall, I'm about 5'8", he was a little shorter than I am. And he was being hovered over by a very tall staff person who was making sure that he would do the dishes properly. It was after dinner, time to clean those dishes. They'd probably eaten together, and my guess is he was probably responsible for even doing the dishes of the staff person. It wasn't going very well. This young man was getting frustrated. The staff person thought they were doing what they should be doing, and I was getting ready to see that pot kind of hit that guy. And when something like that happens, everybody loses. And this man would have added to his reputation, much of which was unfounded. Now, I, of course, by walking in the room, diffused the situation a bit. But, I excused the staff person, said, let me get in here, and I talked to the young man, John. I said, hey, why don't I roll up my sleeves, we can get this done together. And he was all about that. So we rolled our sleeves up, and I think I asked him what he wanted to do. He said, well, you can wash the dishes, I'll dry. So I was washing the dishes, and I took that opportunity to have a conversation with him and to continue to get to know him a little bit better and learn a little more about things that are important to him and his home and where he'd rather live and things about his family. So we chatted while we were doing the dishes, just like anybody would, and decided, okay, well, let's take a few moments to clean up a little bit more. So we started cleaning up the kitchen a little bit more, and I remember, and at this point, the staff person had come back in too, and so that was a good opportunity for him to engage with us. And there was this can on the top of the refrigerator in this house, and I pulled it down because I was curious to know what was in there, and I made the mistake of smelling that thing. And it had some old grease. They'd been pouring grease in there, and I just about gagged. And everyone thought that was funny, and it was just an enjoyable, respectful time together. But what dawned on me and what I think about ever since then, I left, and I don't know what happened to this young man. I often think about him, though, is he didn't feel respected. He didn't feel respected in a moment-to-moment basis by the people around him who thought they were doing their job. This is the time of the day when this is supposed to happen. You're supposed to do it. I'm going to make sure that happens. There was no negotiation about that. It was plan-driven, process-driven, not person-driven. He was not engaged with people in a social way. He felt disrespected moment to moment, but there wasn't an expectation about what he would do with his life ahead of him. There wasn't that sense of you can, you will, excitement around you're capable. That's the big R. So I often think about that and use that as an example of thinking about respect for people and thinking about people as unique individuals who are capable. And I think that would be what I would love to have had an opportunity to change and continue to use that in my time around people and think about that a lot. So that's my moment.